Hey guys, Scott Fishman here with a great guest. You know him if you're a fan of during the 80s and the 90s, you definitely know him. The man of many gimmicks, many personas over the years. Let's run him down real quick. Man Mountain Darsow, Czar Mongo, Repo Man, of course, that's one of the iconic ones. Mr. Hole in One, Crusher Khrushchev, Crusher Darsow, the Blacktop Bully. And then of course Smash of Demolition. But now Barry Darsow. Barry Darsow, how are you today?
Scott, I am doing incredible. I'm the luckiest man in the world. Everything's going great. Thank you for asking.
And before we get into the wrestling side, I think I love to see you live in such a happy life right now. I mean, 40 years of marriage, celebrating it at the most magical place on earth. I live in Orlando. I love Disney too. So seeing someone like yourself at Disney is so fun to see.
Well, what's funny is, I spend, you know, 3, 4 months down there a year, plus I go back and forth there. So I'm actually, I got a residency in Webster. So I bought that Dixie Path, what's it called? The Dixie Dust Pass or
Oh, the pixie
Oh,
dust. Yes.
Pixie does. Yeah.
Yes.
So now we're unlimited to Disney World, Epcot, all those and everything. And I love it.
I love it. Just the thought of you riding Guardians of the Galaxy or Spaceship Earth is just so fun to me.
Well,
So that's
when we were there, we went on the Pirates of the Caribbean, and I got down in those seats. They're so low, I forgot how low they were. I could hardly get out of there. I almost had to get help from people to get me up out of there.
right, right. Oh man, that's funny. Of course, we're also here to talk about your new book that just came out. I love the title, one of the most creative and exciting titles. If I'm not even a wrestling fan and I see the title of this book, I may still want to pick it up. So, Sickles, Studs, and Stolen Cars: The Memoir of a Wrestling Legend, Barry Darsow. I love alliteration, but take me through after having such a long career, storied career. Why was now the right time to have a book and tell your story?
Well, I kind of got away from the business for a long time, and then I got back with Bill Eadie and Axe, and we started traveling around the country again. And it was almost like I was back on the road working again. And I always told Bill, I said, I don't want to do a whole lot of these things, go out of town and do autographs and all that, but I love to meet all the people and see them all again. Then after I did a few of them, I said, well, hey, let's really start doing this. So all of a sudden now we get calls from everywhere, and so many people said, you ought to write a book. And I thought, well, who's going to buy that, and I thought, well, what the heck, I have a lot of great stories, and it's not like you can tell all the stories in one book either, but I just put a couple of them out there. And I talked to my wife and I said, what do you think about it? She goes, yeah, you got to write a book. So that's kind of how it all got started. All the fans and meeting everybody and being on the road again and being kind of back in the business again. And after signing the contract with the WWE again last year, that kind of really put it to where I want to be around the business again.
Yeah, and I love that, that these fences and these bridges can be mended. I mean, there was a couple years ago where things were a little dicey with you and the company, so it's nice that you kind of made it through the other side and that you are able to be celebrated because I think as a performer, you're one of the most underrated, even not even thinking about Demolition, but Demolition aside too, but just as a persona, larger than life characters, gimmicks. I think nowadays that's kind of a lost art, and I think we're seeing a little bit of that, with the Wyatt Six, and of course, the Undertaker's persona lives on in a lot of ways. But just talk about just what you've seen with the evolution of wrestling and what you make of it, and do you feel that gimmicks in wrestling are is something that we should see more of, or you think that was just because it was the '80s and the '90s, and people may not want to see that anymore as much?
Well, it's funny you say that because when I grew up watching wrestling, I watched Harley Race, the Crusher, the Bruiser, Baron von Raschke, and they were larger than life to me when I was a kid. And then finally, I got into the business, and when I first got in, I was looking back at what they did, and I thought, boy. they hardly did anything in wrestling, and now we're taking backdrops and this and that, and I thought we were really, incredible. And then now you see the new guys, and they're nonstop flying around like crazy, and they're probably looking back at us like we looked back at Larry Hennig and all those guys. But to me, the gimmicks I thought were a great time of the wrestling business, and I think that's what brought a lot of people into watching wrestling to where they're watching it now. All the kids are watching it now, so I think they need to get into a few more of the gimmicks. Um, Less talking, more wrestling. And I think that's probably going to be the next thing. It'll because it all gets back into wrestling, and everybody knows it's a show and everything, but the one time you see it and you go, I know he hit that guy. I know they hate each other. That's what I think really draws.
Yeah. And I think there's also that airport test, right? When you're going into the airport and you see someone and you're like, okay, that's a wrestler. Like when you're walking down and, coming off your flight to, I'm on the part of the book right now where you meet Ric Flair out of the blue in an airport and you're bald and you have like a little hair in the back. I mean, that's somebody. That's somebody.
Yeah.
That's not just, somebody working a 9 to 5.
Right. Well, when I saw Rick coming, he was coming off a plane I was going on. And when I saw him, I never met him before, and all I've seen him was on TV. And I said, "Kayfabe," and he looked up at me, and right away he knew I had to be
Language.
somebody. He didn't know who I was, or because I haven't been on TV yet or anything, but that was really the start of my whole career. Was that day because I met the greatest wrestler of all time, and got to be friends with him. And then just
Yeah.
a few weeks later, or a month later or so, I'm in on the road with him traveling, and you know he wants to travel with me. I mean, that was a pretty neat deal.
Yeah, and it's all the connection, the Minnesota connection, Robbinsdale, Minnesota. Just so many Hall of Famers. When you read the book and you talk about your upbringing and going through, and you have your childhood friends like John Nord and you Rick Rude and the Road Warriors, and as you get older, it's just so fun to kind of and Kurt Hennig and seeing all these people pop up. What a cool childhood you had growing up. I mean, that's so cool to,
Oh,
especially with so many that we've lost. It must have been fun to go back and relive those times.
well, and then what was so unbelievable is when you get into the locker room and you got 30,000 people out there, and here you're with all your buddies back in the dressing room, laughing and talking and playing cards and doing everything. And it's like, you know, you're kids again on the playground, but only now you're an adult in the dressing room, laughing and ribs on everybody. And I mean, it was like I say, I'm the luckiest guy in the world.
What obviously when you go back, it's always, you look back at the good times, but some of the bad times too. I'm reflecting on, some parts of your childhood maybe. But also in wrestling, I mean, I look back the uncensored 95 match, King of the Road match, with you and Dustin Rhodes and how that came up with. It's interesting because the whole idea of blood, and then even nowadays we're talking about it in this PG era of programming with WWE and things that could happen. But talk a little about, was there anything that you were happy about the book because you were able to set the record straight of things? You hear a lot of things in the news over the years, legends that become people take it as fact. This was an opportunity for you to kind of clear the air. Was there any part of your career or life you were able to kind of use this as an opportunity to kind of tell your story and get your narrative out there?
Well, it's I always I don't know, it's hard to explain, but everything that I put in the book was just thoughts that I had. It wasn't anything to really get even with anybody or any of that stuff. It was just the story. When that happened in the truck match with Dustin, um, it when we were all done with that match, we both hugged and we were out in a field and we were just blood and horse manure and cow. I mean, we were covered with everything. We were laughing, and that match went on for about an hour. It seemed like, and we thought that we had the greatest match of all time. And then that next morning, when I get the call from Eric Bischoff, and he says, Barry, I got good news and bad news, and I said, what's the good news? He said, oh, you guys had a hell of a match, and the bad news is you're fired. I don't think a lot of people knew that that's what happened. We got fired because we were bleeding in the match. We were told to bleed. Um, a lot of the blood wasn't blood that we did. It was hitting barbed wire and hitting fencing and all that kind of stuff. But what was incredible is Mike Graham, Dustin, and myself, we were the only three that got fired. It was like, well, why didn't the camera crew get fired? Why didn't why didn't anybody else get fired? And I never did find that out. But what do you do? They're the
Yeah.
bosses, and you're just workers. And that's the one thing I've learned in my life. You're a worker bee, and they're the bosses, and you got to do what they say, otherwise you're gone.
Yeah, and I think in any part of line of work, I mean, there's always got to be a fall guy, and it's never going to be the top guy. It's always going to be someone they have to show that they're taking action. Even if it was funny to me because it was a taped match too, so it's something they could have reviewed before the air. So if there was something that was questionable, they could run it by, standards and practices or things like that. But
Yeah, and
um,
I think maybe there might have been more to it than what
yeah,
that was. And I've never really sat down with Eric and really talked to him and say, hey, what really happened, but that's that's what's in. And one day I'm sure he'll talk to me and we'll find out really what happened, you
yes.
know.
But you think what do you make if what would your career have been like had that not happened and your career continued on as WCW became, exploded in popularity? Would you have been a member of the NWO? Where was your mindset at that time when you're before the firing happened? Where did you see WCW going and your role in it?
Well, I thought the Black Dot Bully was a great gimmick. And I mean, I thought it was going to take off and really do something. And I think I could have been, one of those, semi-main event to main event guys. And I really thought in that part of my career that that was going to probably be the last gimmick I had, and I was going to get a big push, and I was just going to be there for a while, and that was going to be me. And then when that shut down, that was the end of it. I That was kind of when I wanted to be done with the business.
Hmm.
And when I came back, because Eric promised me a job, and I got a job, and I got paid real well for hardly doing anything, and I felt so guilty about doing the trade that it was my whole life, and I thought I was good at it, and it just was weird making money and not working, and that's just not how I grew up. So I knew that was kind of the end of my career at that time.
It was
But
everything happens
I
for a
thought
reason
I
sort
thought
of thing.
yeah, I thought for sure I was the Blacktop Bully was really going to be something. And it was the change into the guards and all that stuff. I wasn't part of that clique, I wasn't the NWO clique, and you know what I mean? It was a tough situation then.
Yeah. And then fast forward, I think nostalgia is so big right now. Timing is everything. Talk about just the conversations of men, talking with WWE again and how that went and the thought process. Did you have any, were you trepidatious about it? Just go into that sort of thing and kind of
Well,
how that came about.
well, yeah, and everybody thinks I had a falling out with them or anything. I never had a falling out with them. I just when you're done with them and they don't need you anymore, they don't call you. And I was never somebody that called the office and talked to people, and I just did my job, whatever I was asked to do, and that's what I did. So when Bill and I, we go out 2, 3 weekends a month all the time. We're booked a year in advance. So I never really even wanted to get a Legends contract with the WWE because we're making great money without them. And when when they finally contacted us and said, "Hey, we'd like to put you under a contract," we really had to think about, do we want to do this? But when I was talking to Bill, it was like we need to get back into the thick of things and see everybody, and the money's not everything. And so when they asked us to do it, we signed the contract and everything, and right away, we were asked to go to the Hall of Fame ceremony and WrestleMania. And in fact, the year before that they asked us to, but we already had our schedules already set. So when we got to the Hall of Fame, we got off the elevator, and Bruce Pritchard was right there, who I love Bruce. He sat down and talked to us. Then CM Punk, who was unbelievable. I've never met CM Punk before. He was like he knew us forever. I mean, I really had some respect for him because he was just a good guy. And then pretty soon the Undertaker and Stone Cold, and it was almost like we never left there. We were friends with all these guys, and they took us right in. And I mean, it was worth signing the contract just to go back there and see the guys and say hi to everybody again, you know?
Yeah, I think one of the things people want to see is your induction into the WWE Hall of Fame. I mean, was there ever discussion? Is there discussion of that? I mean, your thoughts on you guys getting finally that moment?
There hasn't been any discussions on that at all. I would love to be in there. I mean, it's a huge, huge honor, especially, when you look at how big the WWE is now, it's just unbelievable. So if you could have that under your belt, the Hall of Fame would be huge. But there's so many people, and I always thought that they should have more than just one tag team or more than two people. Maybe two or three tag teams because there's so many people. How are they going to induct everybody in there that should be in there? And by the time you get in there, you're probably not even going to be alive anymore. So it'd be nice to be inducted in there when you can enjoy it and your family and friends and everybody can enjoy it too. So hopefully it'll be soon, but you never know. You never know.
Yeah, hopefully for my eye as a fan sooner than rather than later. But for you, having been through so many gimmicks and presentations and things like that, I'm curious, is there a piece of gear or something that if somebody offered you $1 million that you wouldn't give it up for it, like something that's in your possession right now?
Well, there was at one time, but I slowly started getting rid of a few things, and the one thing I wish I would have not ever got rid of was the leather pants and spikes. I When I was wrestling, Jim Kelly from the Buffalo Bills wanted that for a restaurant, and I just gave him those.
Wow.
And he gave me a signed football from one of the playoff games. So I still have that football, but I wish I still had that, you
Ooh,
know.
I wonder where it is these days.
I don't know. It's probably in a box somewhere. Somebody's, who knows? Because I'm
Yeah.
sure the restaurant's probably not even around anymore.
Well, maybe people will see this, read this, then maybe it'll come up again.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
But
yeah.
yeah, it's I've actually got rid of a lot of the stuff. I still have some of the things. Um, but what do you do? It's just I don't really have any place to put everything. I got a few things back here, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
that's so cool.
but yeah, I wanted to go to people who really wanted it.
Yeah,
But
that makes
you know,
sense.
yeah.
Um,
But now,
you have the
you
book.
know,
I was gonna say that's a good segue. I love the cover, by the way. Ah, so cool. Like the side by side, just so iconic there. It's awesome.
yeah, it as soon as I saw it when they drew that cover up, I went, yes, that's exactly what it's perfect. And and a lot of people ask me about the Repo Man, and I had so much fun with that gimmick. And after being, main event tag matches with the best tag teams of all time, when I became the Repo Man, I knew I wasn't going to be a main eventer. But my goal was to work with all the main eventers. And when I met with Vince, that was one of the stipulations that I wanted to do. I just wanted to, have no pressure. Don't be nervous about any of the big matches or worried about, how many people are in the stands. I wanted to go out there and have fun and work with all the top guys who were all my friends. And that's what happened. So, some people say, oh, I hated that gimmick. And other people say they love that gimmick. Well, I loved it because I had fun and I made some money and I was with all my friends, you
Yeah, you
know.
can't
That's
get
why,
that's nothing better.
yeah, and in the book, I name a few of my friends, but I got hundreds of friends. I don't think there's one person that I don't like. I love everybody. And even people who don't like me, I still love them.
I love that. I mean, we all need that nowadays in life, not even just in wrestling, just in general right now, I
Well,
think.
yeah, and you look at politics, it's like the Democrats hate the Republicans hate the Democrats, and it's like well, why not love everybody and just don't like that view of that? Because each party has good things, it's not like just because you're this, you're all bad. I mean, I just don't understand the world
Yeah,
like that.
same. Something so simple can make such a big difference if we thought that way.
Right.
Um, Barry, talk about just lastly, just now that the book is out, what's kind of the feedback you've been getting? What does it mean to you? And then also folks that want to follow you, get merchandise, how do they kind of connect with you on that level as
Well, I'm 66 years old and I'm not really, computer savvy and all that, but I got on X and I'm still trying to figure that out. So I kind of do a little bit of, do you call it Xing now or you still call it tweeting? I don't know.
I think that's the verdict is still out on that.
So I kind of tweet out there a little bit. And then Instagram, Bill, he's the one that kind of handles the Instagram and I handle the X. So that's at Real Demo Smash. And then you know, it the funnest thing for me is talking to the fans. And I wish I could tweet with all of them that come in and everything. I'm just so grateful. And uh, everybody that I've talked to that have read the book loves the book because it's an easy reading book and it's a few good stories and it tells a little bit about how I grew up. And my mom was just a huge influence in my life. I mean, we didn't have any money. We were pretty poor, but I didn't even know it growing up because my mom did everything for me. I played hockey, baseball, football, and that's kind of what I wanted to get over in that book, that my family was incredible. And that's why I'm here today and how I made it through wrestling all those years and everything. It's because of my family and my wife and kids and that stuff. So
I think that definitely shines through. And we can all relate because we all have that person in our lives that helped us become who we are today. So it could be a mom, dad, it could be a friend, someone down the street, you never know. So,
right.
um,
And I didn't really know, you know, how to write a book or what to put in there. And I just thought if I was a fan, what would I want to, hear about the Repo Man, Smash, Crusher Khrushchev, Barry Darsow, and I think it was just my friends and just a couple of stories in there. You haven't got to the story about Ernie Ladd yet.
no, I have not.
Well, that story right there, Ernie Ladd was a huge part of my life in the wrestling business. And I rode with him. I roomed with him. He took me in. We played cards and cribbage, and he was like the learning tree for me. And I look back at some of the stuff, and he was one funny son of a gun. And even when he was serious, I can see him doing what he was doing, and I look back and I just laugh. He was such a character, but good guy, and I got a good little story in there. So
All right. And
yeah, we got pulled over.
tons of good stories and
Yeah, we
top
got we
names in
got
there.
pulled we got pulled over by the police in this one. This was a good one.
Oh, okay. Well, when you have a title like Sickles, Studs, and Stolen Cars, you're bound to have some of these stories in there. So,
Yeah,
thank you, Barry, so much for the time. It was so fun catching up and reliving some of those days as a fan. And surely that's going to come out for anybody who reads this, especially and new fans who are kind of weren't around in that era and just kind of thinking about a time back when. So it's great that you kind of set that picture up. So, thank you, Barry,
Scott.
so much for the time.
Yeah, Scott. It was great meeting you too, and hopefully one day in person we'll meet. Now, what part of Florida are you in?
I am in Orlando, so maybe we'll see
Oh,
each other at the parks one day. Who knows?
well,
I'm an annual
yeah,
pass holder.
I'll be down there right after Christmas. I'm there for 3 or 4 months, so
All
might have to do
right.
lunch or something. But yeah, keep reading that book, and everybody,
Yes.
please buy the book and let me know what your thoughts are. I'm not a professional author or any of that stuff, so there's a lot of mistakes in there, and it's
Oh,
just
please.
my memory isn't so good anymore either. So I tried my best at getting everything accurate, but there might be a couple things that might not be. But
I think you did a great job so far from what I've read. So thank you
all
so
right,
much again, Barry. I appreciate it.
thank you. You take care. Bye
All right,
bye.
you too.